Hare Krishna. So welcome to episode 5 of this series of the glories of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip Dham and Jagannath Puri Dhams. And today we're going to be talking about this very important topic of how to cultivate the right consciousness for entering into the Holy Dham. Because it's said that one can't go to the Holy Dham just by buying a ticket. By buying an airplane ticket or a bus ticket or a train ticket or even going by foot, because the Dham is not it's not a material geographical place that you can just go to. Like we've been hearing in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, that it's Krishna's eternal, fully spiritual, totally transcendental abode. And so we can only enter into the Dham when we are in the right state of consciousness. So in today's class, we're going to look at 8 different kind of, I guess you could call them internal practices that we can cultivate now, beginning from now, because it's not long, actually, the time goes fast. So we should start really cultivating these 8 states of mind or states of consciousness, so that it becomes like a second nature to us, so that by the time we get to the Holy Dham, we're like, our consciousness is like fine-tuned. And that way, we may not get a full experience of the Holy Dham because, it's totally spiritual. And unless we're also totally on the transcendental platform, we're not going to be able to access the completely transcendental nature of the Dham. But by this, we might be able to experience at least a little glimmer of what these holy dhams are. Okay, so I really wanted to have more of a discussion-based class on this, but because the time is so short. But let's see, I'll kind of like run through them, and then I'll speak a little bit about each of these 8 things, and then let's see if hopefully there'll be some time at the end. I really hope there will be. Okay, so, and also it's good, like if you have a pen and paper or you have your device with you, you can note down some points and keep them for your own meditation and introspection and preparation for when we go. Okay, so the first one is appreciation. And in Kali Yuga, which is where we are right now, one of the great misfortunes that people suffer from is that they don't understand what is truly of value. And instead we take temporary, insignificant things, like money, career, getting a nice house, finding a spouse, getting like social status, all these kinds of things. We take them to be of supreme importance. And then what's actually of supreme importance, that is our spiritual lives, our relationship with Krishna, our attachment to the holy name, form, qualities, pastimes, abode of the Lord. Generally, we take these things to be not so important at all, or maybe just kind of like optional extras for people who are into it. I'm talking about like general people in this age, that spiritual life it's kind of like an optional extra. If you're into it, if you're like a spiritual person, then good for you. That's all well and good, but it's just if you're into it. But then as we advance in Krishna consciousness, as our hearts become more pure and our perception becomes more clear, then we come to appreciate the value of these spiritual things more. But until we come to that platform, then we simply have to hear. We just have to keep hearing about the glories of devotional service, the glories of the Lord's holy name, the glories of the Holy Dham, which is why I've been putting a lot of energy into trying to, prepare these classes for all of us, not just that I'm doing this for you, but I'm also doing it for myself, because I'm having to immerse myself in these pastimes and all that, so that at least Sorry, I was worried that the connection got lost. We're still good. So that at least theoretically, at least theoretically, we can accept that the Holy Dham is something extraordinary. It's not an ordinary place. It's something super special. And that when we go, we're not going as tourists. It's not even spiritual tourism. It's something really way beyond that. So, like the good fortune of being able to go to the Lord's own home, the same soil that the Supreme Personality of Godhead walked on, the same water that the Supreme Personality of Godhead bathed in. It's just so high that human intelligence can't really grasp it. So we may never be able to fully appreciate it because it's all unlimited and we're limited, but at least we can pray. We can pray our hearts out to have a little appreciation. Okay, and then the next thing is, it's also related to appreciation. So the next thing is gratitude. And these are connected because if we appreciate things, then we're going to be grateful to those who have given us access to those things, right? Like if you really, really want something, then the person who gives it to you, you're going to have a lot of gratitude for. So when we appreciate the value of the Dham, the value of the holy name, the value of, all of our spiritual practices, then we're going to really appreciate those people who gave them to us, who, if it wasn't for them, we would not be in the holy Dham. We wouldn't even know that, these places existed on this planet. So one thing that we can do is reflect on all those personalities in our lives by whose mercy we're able to go on this great pilgrimage. And while we're in the holy Dham, we can also continue to reflect on that. So it's like one time a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, what is our qualification to have received this sublime knowledge, of the topmost, oops, sorry about that, of the topmost, of the spiritual world, basically, the topmost realm of the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. What is our qualification to even know about this? And Srila Prabhupada said, actually, you had no qualification. I made your qualifications. So Srila Prabhupada said that with all humility, but just saying the fact, So as we prepare to enter into the Dham, then we can do so with our hearts full of gratitude for Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And for all the Vaishnavas, including the acharyas through which this mercy has come, through the parampara, coming all the way down from Krishna. And also for those devotees who are amongst us, living now, who brought us to Krishna consciousness, right? We all have so many devotee teachers who have trained us. We have devotee friends who have supported us and helped us in our services. And maybe they've just been a shoulder for us to cry on when we're going through difficulties in Krishna consciousness. And we all have senior devotee mentors who answer our questions, who give us guidance, who nurture us along the path of bhakti. So we can be grateful to all of these personalities. And then, of course, also to the Lord, to Shushi Gaurnitai, who are so merciful, who came and manifested these places, to Radha and Krishna, who are the fountainhead of all this, all the mercy. So, yeah. And then the way, of course, that one thing is to feel gratitude, and another thing is to express the gratitude. So the way to express our gratitude to all these personalities is through service, through really absorbing ourselves in our services, the 9 processes of devotional service, and then also our additional practical services that we do every day. Okay, so that's gratitude. So we have appreciation, gratitude, and number 3 is sincerity. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion that the only qualification to be Krishna conscious is sincerity. That Krishna doesn't see our material qualifications or disqualifications. He doesn't see if we're big devotees, small devotees, famous, or even if we're totally significant. he doesn't really care about our external whatevers. He just sees the sincerity in our hearts and our will to serve and sincerely chant the holy names, basically. So this word sincere comes from a Latin, I heard this, that it comes from Latin, sine, Sarah, which sine means without, and Sarah means wax in Latin. So like in ancient Greece and Rome, these sculptors, kind of like dishonest sculptors, they would use wax to patch up little faults in their craftsmanship. If there were cracks or if there were like chips that were not supposed to be there, they just fill it in with some wax. So if it had wax in it, then it was not sincere. Sincere means without wax. In other words, sincere means without anything added, without any adulteration, without any cover-ups, without any hidden agenda. So our devotion should be like that. That like, just like Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. That pure bhakti is without any tinge of desire for one's own personal sense gratification, and also without any tinge of desire for mystic powers or even liberation, that it's executed only for Krishna's pleasure. So, yeah, and also Lord Chaitanya, he says in Shikshastakam, other things that our devotional service should not have added to it. He says, Nadanam na janam na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishvare, bhavatad bhaktir ahaituki tvaye. He says that I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful followers or a beautiful partner. I just want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. So we don't have any of these material motivations, even liberation. We just want to serve Krishna. So our mood in going to the Dham should be, I'm just going to enhance my service, to increase my remembrance of you, Krishna, and have opportunities to go deeper in my chanting and my hearing and my association, and purify my heart for your pleasure. Okay, so sincerity. And number 4 is humility. Humility, being a humble servant of others. So humility doesn't mean thinking less of ourselves, but it means thinking of ourselves less. And if we really want to enter into the realm, this transcendental realm of the Holy Dham, then Lord Chaitanya taught this consciousness of Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Das Adas Anudas, that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And so the servant means that the servant is not the center of attention. The servant is just the little guy who comes in and brings something and goes away. The center of attention is the person being served. So, and the servant, the servant's only purpose is to benefit the master, benefit the person who's being served. So if we try to become the master, or the proprietor or the controller, then we're going to be frustrated, because that's not our position. That's not who we are intrinsically. And especially in the Dham, that happens. But if we go to the Holy Dham in this mood of being the humble servant of the servants, and just kind of go with Krishna's flow, then everything's going to be fine. Because something may not go our way, but then we'll just think, well, that didn't go exactly the way that I wanted it to, but hey, it's okay, because I'm not the controller. And whatever just happened, it may not have been as fun as I thought it would be or hoped it would be, but hey, that's also okay, because I'm not the enjoyer. I'm just the servant here. So in that way, by having this mood of being the servant of the servant, then every situation just becomes satisfying. And yeah, also another factor of humility is that we forget about our own self-comforting, and we focus more on helping others to be comfortable in whatever the situation is. So that way we become in this very sweet mood of serving other Vaishnavas. And Krishna appreciates that. He really likes it when we serve the other Vaishnavas. And that's actually the most effective way to approach Krishna, by putting the Vaishnavas in front of us. And we see that in the pastime of Lord Indra, when he, tried to flood Vrindavan. He wanted to destroy Vrindavan by so much rain and storm and thunder and lightning and all that. And then afterwards, when he kind of came to his senses and realized that Krishna was God and he committed a big mistake, he went to approach Krishna for forgiveness. But he knew that Krishna wasn't even going to look at him. So he thought, I need a strategy. So his strategy was he got the Sarabi cow. And, Sarabi is a pure devotee of Krishna, and Krishna loves cows. And Sarabi is the best devotee cow who fulfills all Krishna's desires. So Indra put Sarabi in front and said, you go forward. And so when Krishna saw Sarabi, then his heart melted with love for this wonderful devotee cow. And then Sarabi kind of like indicated that, Indra kind of wants to talk to you. So then, because Krishna's heart had already melted and he was just feeling so much love for Sarabi, then when he turned and looked at Indra, then, his mood was different. And then he was able to just be like, okay, Indra, what do you have to say? So like that, even though we're not qualified, but if we put the devotees before ourselves, figuratively, at least, then we put the needs of the devotees, the comforts of the devotees before our own, and we try to serve the other devotees to make them comfortable, make sure they have their needs fulfilled, then Krishna actually becomes attractive. Attracted. Krishna is always attractive. But if we do that, then Krishna becomes attracted to us. He becomes attracted to that mood, and he becomes inclined to let us in to his abode, to let us into the holy Dham, so we can actually experience its beauty and its sweetness as it is. So that is humility. Many things you can say about humility, but I just want to touch on main relevant points to us going to the Dham. Number 5, accepting everything as Krishna's mercy. So yeah, this is very important, because when we go to India can be very chaotic, and the holy Dhams are really no exception to that. So, there will be good times, there will be amazing times, there will be mind-blowing times, and there will also be challenging times. That's just a given. So the trick is to just accept everything as Krishna's mercy. And in all circumstances, to be steady in our enthusiasm, in our Krishna consciousness. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this verse, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje Ahaitukiya Pratiyata Yayatma Suprasidati, which means that the supreme occupation for all humanity is loving devotional service to Lord Krishna. Such devotion must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. So unmotivated means I have no material desire to fulfill here. I have nothing to prove. I have no material thing to gain. That's not why I'm here. And uninterrupted means that even if it's difficult, I don't give up. Because, to practice devotional service in this world, we're inevitably going to face so many impediments, sometimes incredible impediments, because this world is full of dualities. There's, pleasure, sometimes pain, sometimes we're honored, sometimes dishonored, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, sometimes we're healthy, sometimes we're sick. There's just all these dualities. And especially in the holy Dhams, actually, there are going to be many difficulties. We're going in the winter, the mornings are going to be cold. The daytime is going to get hot sometimes. The temples are going to be very crowded, and there are definitely going to be people that you're going to meet that are just going to drive you really nuts, that are going to test your patience to the max. And then, of course, there's our own bodies, and there are our own minds, which are probably the worst difficulties. So it's really helpful to know how to view these difficulties. And yeah, the best way to see the difficulties is to see them as opportunities to show Krishna that we're serious, that when a difficulty comes, we're not giving up. We're committed. You know, we're not just in it for the pleasure or the thrills or the adventure, but we're actually committed to having a spiritual experience and to pleasing the Lord in his holy Dham. Like we're going to his place to try to please him. And in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's also the narration of Gopakumar, who goes through all kinds of difficulties. You know, if you read it, he just has so many difficulties in his life. But then finally, when he goes back to the spiritual world, there's that famous picture, which is there on the wall, right there behind me, where he embraces, Krishna embraces Gopakumar. And he says, my dear devotee, you've gone through so many hardships for my sake. Now I welcome you home. And he just embraces him. So like that, you know, also Lord Brahma says in that famous prayer, Tatenu kampam samikshamano, that consider all the hardships a small price to pay for entering the eternal abode of the Lord. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to enter the eternal abode of the Lord, the Holy Dham. That's what it is. And so there may be some hardships, but we should just take them in stride, accept them as Krishna's mercy, consider them all a small price to pay for being able to get there and get that mercy. And so, you know, even if there are difficulties, like the tendency is when something goes wrong, the first thing we want to do is complain or try to blame somebody or lament or criticize someone or criticize the situation. But we don't want to do that. We really want to try to avoid the urge to complain and just moan and groan about things just because it's not what maybe pleases our senses or pleases our mind. Because if we indulge in that kind of consciousness, then that's what Krishna is going to reciprocate with. And yeah, let me face right there. And he'll actually withhold from us the ability to understand the good fortune that we've been given, because we've chosen to see the negative things. So if we decide to see things negatively, then we will see negatively. But if we decide to just accept everything as Krishna's mercy and take it as all positive, then Krishna will really help us to have a positive experience. Krishna will enable us to understand our good fortune. Yeah, because the fact is that even though, like, you know, for those of you who are Krishna house devotees, that I'm together with Brihat, we're trying to arrange this trip. The fact is that although I'm personally trying to arrange everything I can to give you the best possible experience, the fact is that I have no idea what's going to happen over there. Because I'm not the controller either. So, but one thing for sure is that the experience that we have, that each of us have, is going to be exactly what Krishna wants us to have. It's going to be exactly what we need. And that's going to depend on our individual consciousness. So you'll see that two people can be in the same exact situation, and one is thinking, this is amazing, this is wonderful, and the other's thinking, this is terrible, can I go home now? So you'll see, and it just depends on our consciousness. So the more that we have the right consciousness, and that's why I'm having this class, then the more we're going to be able to really like have a wonderful experience. Because basically suffering comes from thinking that there's something other than Krishna. So if we see there's something other than Krishna at play, then we're going to suffer. But as long as we see everything as Krishna, that Krishna is controlling, this is all Krishna creating this experience for me, for my benefit, then we're not going to suffer. We're going to grow and we're going to learn and we're going to have an amazing experience. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next one, number 6. So this is about our perception, that we should try to see the Holy Dham, not with our material eyes, but with what we call Shastra Chakshus, which means seeing through the eyes of scriptures. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the holy Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Navadvip Dham, these holy places are covered by a fine layer, which is like in Bhagavad Gita, he calls it the Yogamaya curtain. There's a fine, this curtain that covers the Dham that prevents people with mundane consciousness from actually seeing the Dham as it is. So, with our material eyes, with these eyes made out of flesh and blood, we're going to see only, roads full of potholes and garbage strewn all over the place and sewage running in the streets. We'll see poverty. We'll see people dealing in ways that are harsh with each other, that are unfair, people trying to cheat other people. This is what our mundane eyes are going to see. But this is not the holy Dham. That's what we have to understand. This is not the holy Dham. So we actually, while we're there, we need to have less faith in our own material eyesight and more faith in the scriptures. Because actually behind all of this stuff that we see going on the surface, the Lord is performing his unlimited pastimes in these holy Dhams to this day. That the true Dham is actually non-different from the spiritual world. And it can be seen by those who have full faith in the words of the acharyas in Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and who have, these moods of humility and devotion, and that such pure devotees can actually, to this day, see the divine pastimes of the Lord continuously taking place in the holy Dham. And one example of that is Gorkishore Das Babaji, that when he was living in Vrindavan, one time the devotees came and they offered those obeisances. They came and they offered dandavats there to Gorkishore Das Babaji in the dust of Vrindavan. And then they stood up and they were like brushing off, the dust from their foreheads and their their clothes. And Gorkishore Das Babaji chastised them. He said, "What are you doing? Don't you know that every particle of this dust is more valuable than all the jewels of the heavenly planets and Vaikuntha combined?" And you're just trying to push it off you as if it's something ordinary. You should see it as a blessing. This is like a spiritual blessing. So this is the vision of these great souls. And Srila Prabhupada also taught us that a Vaishnava sees with their ears. So instead of trying to see with the eyes, we should hear from the scriptures, like we've been doing, hearing from, books like the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya and Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, hearing about Navadvip Dham, and then seeing through the ears. In other words, hearing it and then interpreting what our material eyes see according to those words of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Because by having faith in the words of the acharyas and the words of the sadhus, then those great personalities can actually reveal to us the holy Dham. So we're hearing from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we're hearing from Lord Nityananda, we're hearing from Krishnadas Kaviraj, Vrindavan Das Thakur, these devotees who can see the Dham, and they can reveal it to us by their words. Okay, number 7. This is that we should, when we go to the Dham, focus on spiritual progress. Specifically, be immersed in the 5 potent processes of bhakti. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us through Rupa Goswami these 5 very important processes. The most potent processes for making spiritual advancement are associating with devotees, chanting the holy names, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, worshiping the deities, and being in the holy Dham. So, when we're in our ordinary locations doing all of our services and all of our things, then it can sometimes be difficult to be fully immersed in these. Maybe some of us have jobs, or our students, or whatever, our families and stuff. We have to go to the doctor and do all these things, right? So But when we go on a retreat like this, on a pilgrimage, then it gives us the chance to just forget about all the ordinary things, all the kind of like more mundane aspects of, our conditional activities in this life, and really immerse ourselves in these constitutional activities of the soul. And the Holy Dham is really the best place to do these things. So that's one thing that we can start doing now, is trying to organize our lives so that we don't have anything else to do while we're in the Dham. So just try to like tie up all the loose ends now, try to just like be really proactive and think, okay, whatever I need to do, whatever kind of like mundane things I need to take care of that I would have to take care of during the months of, December, basically, which is when most of us will be there, all of us will be there. Try to get it done now, or make arrangements so that it can be done another way, so that we don't need to worry about it while we're there. We can just totally get absorbed. And, absorbed in chanting, absorbed in hearing, absorbed in seeing the deity and really being present for the deity. And also going on parikrams while we're there, because, His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami said that we worship Lord Chaitanya by Sankirtan, we worship Lord Jagannath by Ratha Yatra, and we worship Sri Navadvip Dham by going on parikrams. So we want to be able to make sure that we can just go on the parikrams, go to these places, walk around the Dham, visit the islands as much as the 9 islands, and not be like, oh, sorry, I have to stay back because I have to take care of whatever, something that, whatever we have to do. Yeah. And then if we stay focused like this, then we're going to make so much spiritual progress, because these are the 5 potent processes, and we'll be executing them in the most potent place, Navadvip Dham, where there's no consideration of offenses. So there's nothing that's going to subtract from our spiritual advancement. We're just going to be just like flying. It's going to be like, turbo boosting ourselves in our spiritual lives. And Krishna will reciprocate. He says that ye tamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. He rewards us according to our effort, according to how much we put our heart and soul into practicing our Krishna consciousness. So yeah, in other words, what we get out of the experience of visiting the holy dhams is going to depend very much on what we put into it. So let's make sure that we're putting everything into it so that we can get everything out of it. And, for every 1 step we take towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps. So we're putting in 1, but Krishna's giving us 10. And in Navadvip Dham, he's probably giving us even more than that, because Lord Chaitanya, it's Odarya Dham, remember? Odarya means generosity. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda are so generous in Navadvip Dham. They're just in this mood of giving, just giving. All right, so the last item here is number 8, is prayer. And prayer is very important. It's one of the 9 processes of devotional service. And so in each place, wherever we go in the Holy Dham, we should really be praying very intentionally and sincerely for pure devotional service, for having a humble heart, devoid of false ego. Just let the false ego melt away. All my misidentifications as this body and this whatever, and pride and all these things, just let it go away. All the lust, the greed, the anger, whatever, just let it all go away and leave nothing except pure devotional service. And we can also pray to the Lord to remove the Yogamaya covering, so that we can, and to like just open the curtain, at least, a little bit, at least for a short minute, to give us a glimpse of the truly transcendental nature of the Dham. And we can also pray there to become so spiritually surcharged with the eternal benefits of this pilgrimage that it will invigorate us and empower us on the path of bhakti for our whole lives going forward, and that we'll be able to share that with others. So those are the 8 things that I felt were like, of course, there's many qualities, there's many things that we could talk about, but those 8 kind of just struck me as really extremely important. And I hope you've been able to note some things down there that you can keep thinking about it. And then we can also remind each other of these things while we're there. It'll be helpful. Now, yeah, the time went too fast. There's still a few things I wanted to talk about, just like that are also related to the proper mood of entering the Dham. And these are in relation to etiquette. So because most of us in this, at least in the Krishna House group, most of us have not been to India before. So we're going to another country where the culture is very different and people have very different perceptions of things. In other words, they don't see things the way we see things, or they interpret things different from the way we interpret things. Things that we think are totally normal, totally acceptable, are not socially acceptable in that culture. So it's good to be aware of some of these things and just be really sensitive and kind of just like tread lightly, culturally speaking, so that because we don't want people to have a bad impression of us, because we're members of ISKCON, we're representing Srila Prabhupada, we're representing also ISKCON North America, which, maybe some people in India, they have some, negative assumptions about already. And also for those in my group, we're representing Krishna House. And we want people to look at us and be like, wow, these are amazing devotees. Where are they from? This is so inspiring. And all of you are, of course, amazing devotees. I mean, I know that, and I have no doubt or hesitation in telling anybody that. I know that you're all like very sincere and very surrendered and doing really wonderful services. But the problem is that people that we meet are not going to know that about you. They're not going to have the time to get to know us on a deeper level. So what happens is they're just going to judge us by superficial things, by what they can see. For example, our appearance. So the good news is that it's very easy to get those things right? Like the internal things are hard to get right, but at least we can look good. It's very easy to just look good. So then let's do that. Let's try to at least look in a way that people who have no choice but to judge us by the superficial appearance, they can at least be like, wow, these look like nice devotees. So for that, we can talk about dress. So for male devotees, try to wear dhotis and kurtas, and then the women, saris worn in a discreet way, or gopi skirts, with a nice blouse and dupatta, not baggy t-shirts and stuff. And then whatever we wear, our clothes should be clean and neat. And then for bathing, whoever wants to bathe, in the Ganga or in the sea at Puri, then for men, it's okay to wear shorts. For women, we can't show, like the legs should be totally covered. So either a full like ankle length skirt, or the best thing actually is like loose fitting pants, like these Indian like Punjabi pants, and then a long top over it, because they're going to stick to you and you don't want them to like anyways, the point is just like so nobody can really like make out your form as far as possible, like that. So I know it seems like, it seems horrible and sexist and all that, but the reality is that we're going to India and the culture is a little bit like that. So we just have to, in Rome, do as the Romans do. In these places, we have to conform, at least externally, to the culture in order to leave a good impression. And then general appearance, just like be very clean, tilak, men, clean shaven, faces, no beards, ladies, hair tied back, like in a braid or in a bun, without loose hair or loose strands of hair hanging in your face and stuff. And see, it sounds like petty little things, but you wouldn't believe how much difference these things make in India. And also like behavior. So how we interact with each other, how we interact with other people, and like eating, for example, always eat with your right hand. Like just don't touch prasadam at all with your left hand. And if you're not used to that, then just practice now, like sitting on your left hand, putting it under your leg while you eat, so that you learn how to eat everything, even the chapati, without touching it with your left hand. And be very respectful to people, especially old people. Even if they're non-devotees, be very respectful to elderly people in India. And be very tolerant with Indian non-devotees. And another thing to be aware of is that this is something that we don't see so much here in the West, but in India, there's a huge difference between Indian people in different classes. So you're going to see Indian people who just seem super ignorant. You know, they're just like really just unbelievably kind of dull and gross in their behavior. And for them, things that are socially unacceptable in the West, like, you know, staring or just bumping into someone or just like spitting, burping loudly, it's just normal for those people. And they won't think there's anything wrong with it. And if you think there is anything wrong with it, they're going to think there's something wrong with you. It's just the way it is. So there's no use, like if they do those things and it's kind of gross or you think it's rude, just don't get upset about it. Just like, don't worry about it at all. It's just the way they are. And then on the other extreme, you're going to meet Indian people who are super refined, highly cultured, and they're so well mannered that they make you feel ashamed of yourself. They make you feel like, oh my God, they just make you feel so uncultured, like you're sitting with a demigod, you know, it's like that. And then there's everything in between. So it's just good to know that, you know, and also ISKCON devotees come from all these groups. So be careful just not to lump everybody in and make judgments that Indian people are like this, because not all Indian people are like any one Indian person. And rather than being judgmental, we should just try to respect everyone. And some people we might want to respect a little bit from a distance, but in any case, be respectful. And yeah, even though Krishna was born in India, Lord Chaitanya appeared in India, but not all Indian people are devotees, but most of them are favorable. So you can always greet a person by saying Hare Krishna. And especially if you're wearing devotional clothes, they'll probably just walk up to you and say Hare Krishna. So it's fine to just say that to anyone. But that said, for Vaishnavis, for the women, be careful how you interact with people, especially like Indian men. And it's best to not go out alone at all. And if you do, especially like those of you who are like really white skinned, then if you go out alone, it's almost sure that you're going to get approached by a man. If that does happen, you're not obliged to interact at all. Like it's totally fine in India for a woman who's approached by a man to just like not respond, and just you can fold your hands and excuse yourself and just walk away. And like, yeah, and especially like if you feel uncomfortable at all, just don't interact, don't smile, don't show any emotion, just like be like just totally stony face and walk away. You can see how that you can observe how the Indian women do this. They're really good at that. Can learn how to deal with that situation. So yeah, just a couple more things. I know it's getting late and maybe this is a little boring, but I feel like it's important and it'll help you to be able to navigate certain scenarios. So like we'll be going to ISKCON Mayapur. And so just be prepared that in December, thousands of people are going to be there. And most of them are not devotees. Most of them are like on their winter vacations and they're just coming like on holiday, you know. They come in a mood of tourism to see the big temple, to see the Westerners. And so be prepared that all of us are going to be like walking tourist attractions for them. And people are going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to take a picture with you. So yeah, especially if we're in a group and, you know, it's like a family. Usually they're also in groups. And it's kind of nice, like as a way of preaching, if we can take a few minutes just to make them happy and, you know, say Hare Krishna. And it's good also, like if you have some small books with you, then you can let them take your picture and then give them a book and ask them for 10 rupees or something like that. And you know, take advantage of their interest in us to be able to give them Krishna consciousness in whatever way we can. Yeah. And then also this is the last thing, that amongst ourselves also be a little careful about, you know, don't have too many frivolous kind of like, just don't be too frivolous between, you know, even amongst ourselves, between opposite genders. It'd be like, you know, mutually respectful, and we don't need to like, you know, be weird or cold or whatever that like that, but just like don't be overly frivolous, like laughing and joking, especially too much with one individual. In a group, it's okay. But especially for, men who are wearing saffron, that's like something that's looked upon very highly in India. So just, act the way, be careful how you act with women, because it's something that people will notice. And then just always like the standard, observe the rule of three. Especially like for bathing in the Ganga or something like that, it should be more than the rule of three. It should be like a large group if it's going to be mixed genders. So yeah, those are some things that I just wanted to brief you on. I know a few of you are leaving very soon and going to Vrindavan first, so it's important to, I just want to make sure that you heard these things before you go, so that you can be prepared internally in terms of your mood, so that you can enter nicely into the Dham and have a wonderful spiritual experience, and also to protect yourself from, dangers that are there. And we'll talk more about those later when we get there too. But yeah, we're going to a different culture, and it's actually like you're going to see people are very different. So I hope that's been helpful for you. And I apologize that there wasn't time for any discussion or questions. But Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. And we'll have our next session on next Monday. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Thank you.
Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.
Thank you, Prabhupada Priya.